mic. Is that okay? Do I need to move, or is it on?
You're good. I can move it.
Just adjust it a little bit. There we go. Perfect. Hey everyone, welcome to Faithful Fridays. Dr. Trevor, it's great to be with you today. So today's topic, we're going to talk about hope and the impact of hope on our wellness and our mental health. Now, we've talked about hope in the past, and I think that's a topic, man, it's helpful for us to be reminded of and revisit frequently because there's so much power in hope. So when we think about hope as an emotion, we might often think about it as a forward-feeling emotion. And what I mean by that is there are certain emotions we have that are past feeling, like sadness and grief and guilt and regret, right? We're feeling in the present about something that's already happened in the past. And then there are these other emotions that we feel in the present that are forward. We call them forward feeling. So some examples are like anxiety and worry. Right? We're worried about what's going to happen next. We're anxious about how it's going to play out. But if we think about it, hope is that way. Hope is a forward-feeling emotion. And so today we want to talk about this in kind of both contexts. Not only is it forward-feeling, but hope is built on the past that gives us this confidence in the present to hold hope for the future. Okay, so in fact, I want to reference that in just this passage in Romans. Romans chapter 15. I'm going to pull it up here for a second, take a look at it. Romans 15, verse 13. So it's the Apostle Paul who's writing to the Church of Rome, and he says this. He says, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit." Another verse that's actually it's in the same book. It just comes several chapters before this, and it's against the Apostle Paul. Right? He's actually talking about Abraham, and he says this about Abraham. He says, "Against all hope, Abraham in hope believed, so that he became the father of many nations, just as it has been said to him, so shall your offspring be." Okay, so this idea of, these passages in Romans, where the first one where the Apostle Paul is kind of saying, hey, but may you find hope, and may it be like a gift of God fulfilling inside of us. And then the second passage where Paul's referring back to something in like the peoples, like the people of Israel, their history. He's talking about Abraham. Right, and for Abraham, it was hope in the moment of what seemed hopeless. So if you've ever read that story, if you know it, so it was prophesied to Abraham that he would be the father of all nations. In fact, he had an encounter with God where he was told, as he looked up at the stars, that his offspring would be as many as there were the stars. Or as he sat like on the beach and he looked at the sand, that he would have, his offspring would be as much as there is sand. And so there was this sense of forward vision, forward idea, which came with this forward feeling of hope. So where that story comes from is this place in Abraham's life where God had told him that you're going to be the father of all nations, and you're going to have your offspring is going to be more than you can count. But the feeling of hopelessness is in the present, is like Abraham was married to Sarah. Sarah and Abraham were not able to have children. So there was this like incredible, like obvious kind of dilemma. How in the world am I going to be the father of all nations if I can't have a child? But in the midst of what seemed hopeless in the present, Abraham was able to hold on the promise from the past, right? And he was able to hold that with hope for the future. You know, this topic reminds me of a hymn that I remember singing. I grew up attending an elementary school, a Lutheran school, like a private school, and I remember going through catechism, and I remember going to chapel services at that school, and I remember having to sit in those chapel services and open the hymnal every week. I remember they would, somebody, whoever's leading the songs or up front, would say, "Hey, open your hymnals too," and they'd give us a page number. We'd turn to that page number, and we'd sing whatever the hymn was. And I remember one of the hymns that was repeated over and over and over was the hymn, "My hope is built on nothing less." Have you ever heard that hymn before? My hope is built on nothing less. So that hymn was actually written in, I think it was like in 1830s. A guy named Edward Mote was his name. And he focused on, in the midst of it, there's like the refrain of those old hymns, now we might call it a chorus. And it was, "On Christ the solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand." Like that line that's repeated over and over in this hymn, I think is so powerful. "On Christ the solid rock I stand, on all other ground is sinking sand." So here's this song that talks about like being in the present, right? "On Christ the solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand." And it's this idea that in the midst of where it seems hopeless, right? The rocks are shifting, the foundation is unstable, things are moving, and but I find my security and my safety, my stability, right, on Christ, right? Christ, the solid rock I stand. And in the most of that, there's this idea of hope, right? My hope is built on nothing less. So, as we think about the impact of hope, I want to just walk through a few basic principles and applications for today in a way that I hope is helpful for you. So the first thing is I want to talk about the impact of hope on our mental health is introducing what is referred to as the hope theory. Did you ever know that there was actually a hope theory? Yeah, so it was developed by a guy named Charles Cinder. And he's got three kind of main elements to this idea of a hope theory. So the first, if we're going to hold on to hope and if we're going to hold out for hope, we have to have this idea of like a goal-directed determination. So what I mean by that is, again, when I talk about this idea, this forward feeling sense of that hope has, like hope really has to have this goal-directed determination. So this idea of setting clear, achievable goals is critical to the idea of hope. So whether are those financial goals, whether those are health goals, whether those are educational goals, occupational goals, spiritual goals, right? In order for us to hope for something, there has to be a sense of direction. There has to be a sense of determination and this idea of goal-directed. That's really important. On this Faithful Friday, I've shared many, many, many times one of my favorite quotes around hope, which is this: hope without a plan is just a dream. So here's Charles Cinder reinforcing that idea, to be able to say, hey, if we're going to hold on to hope, hope has to have a plan. And part of that plan is this idea of we have to have goals. So if I hope to be a millionaire someday, right, I have to set goals that are actionable, that are going to move me to that place. If I hope to lose weight, I need to have like actionable plan, like steps, right, to be able to increase my exercise, decrease my calorie intake, change my diet, move more, whatever might be happening. Right, these goal-directed determinations is the first part of Charles Sinder's hope theory. The second part is what I love this, what he calls pathways, and specifically is pathway thinking. So he talks about this planning ways to achieve these goals, so such as setting daily objectives and being very intentional in the way that we might do this. So pathway thinking is just simply this idea of I need to put into practice, I need to implement this plan like in daily practical ways. And so the thinking part of that is I need to set a path. And if I'm going to have a dream or a goal, this idea of hope has to come with goals. Goals has to be built on a plan. A plan has to have steps. Like I need to have a pathway. So again, pathway thinking is number 2. And then this third part of it that he refers to in his hope theory is the idea of agency thinking. Agency thinking. It's this motivation to follow up on these pathways is supported through the way we motivate and inspire ourselves to keep taking actionable steps. Like in Philippians chapter 4, Paul is writing to the church of Philippi, and there's this idea that when we can reinforce our beliefs, right? When we can remind ourselves that with God's help, we are able to take active steps. We are able to manage life's challenges. We are able to take moments of progress and movement towards those goals which move us towards our hope. Okay, so just a quick review. So the first thing is again this having goal-directed determination is an incredible first step in being able to say, hey, if I'm going to have hope, I need to be able to put hope into some way that's like tangible and practical, that I can have these goal-directed determinations, right, moving me closer to that place of hope. The second part is pathway thinking. If I'm ever going to get to that hope, and if I'm ever going to have goal-directed determination, I have to actually take steps in the right direction. I have to have a path, like a pathway, right, that's going to help me get there. And so the thinking of every day put into practical steps, one step closer. And then this agency thinking, what is this part of like this agency of motivation and inspiration, this place that says keep going, you can do it, this thought process that keeps us moving forward little by little. Okay, a few other things about this idea of the impact of hope is there's some incredible studies that have shared results and research and data with us. So I'm just going to give you kind of the high level of some of these studies. So highlighted studies, they show that high hope individuals exhibit greater emotional well-being, are more resilient in stressful situations, and maintain better social relationships with others. Okay, so those who are able to attain higher levels of hope in their lives increase their well-being, increase their ability to respond to stress with resilience, increase their ability to connect and relate with other people in their lives, right? That's significant. Like that matters. That makes a difference in us. So I don't know about you, but I hear that and like that motivates me to want to be a person filled with hope. So here's one of the things that we can do is just kind of a practical application in this. So think about this as maybe like a hope plan, right? Going back to that statement of hope without a plan is just a dream, or Charles Snyder's hope theory detailed, right? This idea of goal-directed determinations, pathway thinking, agency thinking. Okay, so think about this in practical application. So if we can use that hope theory to guide ourselves in setting personal goals, spiritual goals that's going to move us to a place of hope. It's going to move us to grow closer to those goals. As we're going to grow as a result of it. We're going to develop with this idea of like a hope plan. So daily practices and daily motivations that move us there. So there's been seasons when I've done this in my life, or I've got a hope, I've got a dream, but I have to put some practical things in place to help me move in that direction. So I think in all of this, when we think about this from a spiritual context, I think about it from the deep place of like aspirations, like hopes and longings and dreams for our lives. Like if we dig really deep inside of us, this place of like what's meaningful to us, what's life-giving to us, what do we feel like there's purpose and calling for us? And how can we take active steps to move in that direction? Like first and foremost, like our commitment to our relationship with Christ. Like our commitment to look into his word and spend time with him. And our commitment to get plugged into a local church or into a community of faith that spurs us on with encouragement, but also helps keep us accountable and helps move us, helps us move forward with like discipleship and spiritual disciplines and the journey of sanctification. Like all of that is so important. And then this other part of us that I think is unique that God is in all of us. Right? He's put stirrings and small flames that can grow into fires. This idea of passion in us. We listen to that. We pay attention to that. We learn and discern about our story and God's work in us and God's work through us, and we start to grow in this sense of longing and fulfillment. And so in that's where this place of hope comes from. So when it comes into practical terms, like some of my hopes along the way, like I hoped when I was younger, right, to one of my early hopes when I was in like middle school and high school was like I hope someday that I can really help people. Well, that took a lot of actually discipline to be able to say, well, what does that actually mean? And how does that look like? And how's that going to work? And there's practical steps of like, I want to go to college. All right, now when I go to college, I want to study psychology. And then in the midst of that, it was this calling in me of like, hey, I feel like God's calling me as some kind of ministry. And it was the pursuit of seminary. And then it was more education, the pursuit of grad school. And eventually it was the pursuit of doctoral studies. And it was all of that to move closer. I just want to help people the best way that I can, right? This deep inside of me. And it was a hope that grew out of me, right, into the work that I get to do today. And there's still that hope of how I can continue to do that in greater ways to honor God and care for others. Now, another hope I remember from a long time ago was, like, I hope to run a marathon someday. Well, you know what? That didn't happen by accident, right? It happened by intention, right? It took active, practical steps of, like, just getting out and running a little bit, and then running a little more, and starting to get into a regiment, and then getting into research about what kind of shoes should I be wearing, and clothes should I be wearing, and how should my nutrition change, and when should I run, and how often should I run, and they did a 5K and a 10K and a half marathon and a marathon, and then I fell in love with it. And then I didn't want to do one marathon. I want to do as many marathons as I can. And for a season of my life, right, that was the fulfillment of hope. But it took goal-directed determination. It took pathway thinking, and it took agency thinking. So the application here, the practical part, is to think about for yourself. So maybe you need to start keeping a journal. Like, what are your hopes and what are your dreams? What are the ways maybe God is speaking to you in the still and the quiet, or maybe it's in loud ways? Where are others speaking into you and it's life-giving to you, and you can affirm that as God's voice through others? Start to journal that. Write it down. And then just be brave enough to start taking active and practical steps in whatever direction that might be. Okay, so with that, I want to just talk for a few moments before I wrap up around this idea of developing and sustaining a personal hope strategy. Okay, like building and sustaining a personal hope strategy. So I already referenced this idea of like, what if you were able to come up with a hope plan? So with that specifically, like think about this from the foundation of your spiritual place, right? This idea of maybe every day you need to just jot in a journal what God is speaking to you or saying to you, you're hearing from Him. Be intentional about opening your Bible. Like maybe every day have a daily scripture reading. Maybe you start meditating, or you start having like a discipline of prayer, like you're praying around hope every day. Maybe out of that you're practically in your journal, or outside of that, like maybe you're just putting into practice like these practical steps to take when feeling hopeless. The part of you is like when I'm lacking hope, when I feel like there isn't hope, when I can't see that envisioned future for myself, when I'm struggling in the present. Right? Remind yourself actively, take practical steps and have strategies for what do I do when I'm feeling hopeless. I think one of the things that's really helpful with hope and putting hope into action is inviting somebody else into the process. That's super, super powerful. When we can share with somebody, hey, this is what I'm working on, this is what I'm working towards, this is what I'm hoping for in my life, and this is how I'm stepping into it with incredible faith, with word and with deed. And I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to take action and step into it. Okay, so you're going to develop this hope plan. And you're going to take these active steps, right? Like you're going to set goals that are forward-thinking, moving you towards that idea of hope in the future. You are going to be practical in the way that you start to implement that. You're going to like regularly check in with yourself. You're going to reflect. You're going to track your progress. You're going to invite somebody into the process every step of the way. All right, just before we wrap up, I just want to go back to this idea of finding hope. And when we know back to that hymn that I talked about, my hope is built on nothing less. That our hope is founded at the core, first and foremost, at the foundation of Christ, right? On Christ, the solid rock, I stand. And if we can stand in that place, and we can be firm in that foundation, and we can be built on His promises from the past, and we can look forward with hope to the future, right? This forward thinking. In fact, we know, like the most hopeful part of our future is to spend heaven with Him, right? Like the eternity is the most hopeful part of our faith that we have. While God has us here on this earth, and while we have the opportunity to steward well the longings He's put inside of us, the desires that we have, the dreams that we dream, hold on to hope. Okay, so I hope this was helpful for you. There we go, I used the word hope. I hope this is helpful for you in whatever you're going through today, where you find great hope or you find very, very little hope. To know that you can, again, stand on the firm foundation in the present of the promises of God in the past and the hope of the future. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And whatever you're going through, hold hope. And not just hold hope, but lean into it in a way that you're living it out day in and day out. All right, it's great to be with you guys. As always, if you want to reach out to us, you can do that. You can email us at coaching@livewellbehaviorhealth.com. Hope you are getting into our platform. You're finding our courses, our challenges. Looking forward to seeing you back